Well, while the rest of us were out there working last week, Trey, somebody went out and shot themselves a 6-under par 66.
He did. We were just talking about the weather down there, 80 and breezy, but it's not going to be that way on Saturday night, Todd.
Okay, so since I've been gone, let's see, since I last sat in this chair, Penn State upset then number 2 ranked Ohio State and then lit up Purdue for 62 points. I'm surprised you let me back in the door. Appreciate being here. Blue White Tailgate is next. Let's do this thing.
And we welcome you to Blue White Tailgate. Great to have you with us. Trey, Todd, I'm Steve. The vote was close on letting you back, by the way. But these were the 2 swing votes. Really, a little kumbaya on the set never hurts. Coming up on the show today, we'll take a look at, obviously, Penn State, Iowa, break down the win over Purdue, and take a good long look at a very good Iowa football team. Trey, they go on the road after the big win over Ohio State. What kind of maturity did they show?
I think they did really well. I mean, I was kind of a little nervous in the first half. I think they came out a little bit flat. Obviously, Brandon Smith at that pick at the beginning of the third quarter was really important. But, you know, it says a lot that they could kind of overcome not playing great that first half and really take it to them in the second half.
Well, we like to say that week 9 we hit our stride, right, as a team out here, right? I think Penn State's hit their stride. And, you know, you see the touchdown drive to begin the game. You see the touchdown drive the first time they touched the ball in the third quarter. Oh, those are all the things you like to see from your offense and from your team. And since Kabinda and Bell have returned, wow, defense has been special.
For Saquon Barkley and the Nittany Lions, their first road win of 2016.
Win in the Big Ten is big time. Any team, Purdue is a great team. And I don't care what the record says, but anytime you get a Big Ten win, and especially a road win number 1, we really needed that. We haven't won a road game since Maryland last year. Won 2 in a row, and we have a couple more road games coming up. And we really need that, and I think we're really making progress, and I think we're starting to believe in each other, and stuff is starting to come together.
You made a lot of really good points there. I mean, because that's just another hurdle where you've got on a plane, you won the game, you got on the plane, you come back feeling good. That's a hurdle.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a hurdle, but let's be clear. Purdue is not a great team, Saquon. Okay, so he's saying that because he thinks he should say that. Purdue is a very mediocre football team. You know, who they're playing on Saturday at Iowa is very well coached, very solid football team. And, you know, Penn State's going to have their hands full with them, I think.
Now, those are processes, though, to your point, Steve. I mean, it's a process that you've got to get it past, a hurdle, to an obstacle to clear. And, yes, it wasn't a very big obstacle, Trey. You're absolutely right. It's Purdue. It's the Boilermakers. But it is a hurdle that they got to clear as they get and they get comfortable, and that builds that confidence when they hit the road the next time.
Everyone at Purdue speaks very highly of you. All right.
I don't really care what people at Purdue think of me, to tell you the truth.
That's a long list. That's the Thanksgiving show. All right. Well, let's take a look at the update desk. Here's Mandy Niad.
Thanks so much, Steve. The football gods are alive and well, my friends. Let's take a look at this week's top 25 college football programs. Numbers 1 through 6 remain the same. No surprise to see Wisconsin move up 3 spots and Nebraska down 2 after the Badgers beat the Huskers last week. My alma mater, the Florida Gators, are up 4 spots to number 10. Also up 4 spots is Penn State to number 20. The Washington State Cougars are ranked at number 25 after winning their last 6 straight. Now it's time for the Health South Injury Update Board. As we all know, James Franklin is tight-lipped about injuries with his players, but it looks like Coach himself is playing hurt this week.
Excuse me, I got a little bit of chest cold. Excuse me.
Not to worry, he is expected to coach this weekend. Get well soon, Coach. And that's your Health South Injury Update. Let's take a look at the NFL and the Lions in the league. Former lacrosse player Chris Hogan had 91 yards and a touchdown for the Patriots in their win over Buffalo. Allen Robinson had 70 yards for Jacksonville in their Thursday night loss to Tennessee. Sean Lee had 6 tackles in Dallas's win over Philly in overtime. My star of the week goes to Puddles, the Oregon Duck. Here he is dressed as a teddy bear Because who says costumes are just for people? Mascots want to play dress up too. Steve, back to you.
All right, thank you, Mandy. Let's take a look at the initial college football playoff standings. And you look at the top four, Texas A&M over Washington, Penn State at number 12. Look, this is just a starting point with so much football to be played, but at minimum, it puts you in a position.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to start somewhere, and that's kind of how they're doing it. Right. I mean, Penn State at 12 is, you know, I kind of watched what they were saying. You know, the fact is they played some good competition, winning teams. You have to start somewhere. Is 12 too high? You know, who knows? They
like that they have beaten 4 teams with winning records for sure. And it looked like the initial Big Ten SEC rankings, didn't it? I mean, 5 teams from the Big Ten in the top 12. It speaks highly of the conference.
Right. You know, but the bottom, it's a starting point. I mean, that's why we're not making a big deal out of it one way or the other because there's so much football left. But as for James Franklin, he sees internally and externally what it means and what it doesn't mean.
I think externally it helps. Internally, I don't think it does. You know, our focus is on Iowa. Internally, that's all we talk about. We don't talk about those other things. Talk about making sure we have a great environment on Saturday, so we have a home field advantage. Making sure our guys are prepared.
And let's face it, everybody knows Iowa's really good. So this is not a look-past game in any way, shape, or form. Look at the Big Ten standings. We'll start out west. Great matchup between Nebraska and Wisconsin, but it's still Nebraska controlling their own destiny in what's turned into a really good West race. And there's Northwestern at 5, and Northwestern's playing really well. Now to the east, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. The other 3 standard bearers right there.
Well, you looked at those West standings, and look, Nebraska's at Ohio State. That could change very easily. So you got 4 teams chasing them with 2 losses in the conference. It could be a really big logjam at the top because Nebraska may control their fate, but going to Columbus is no easy deal.
Right, no question. There are only a few players on the Penn State team that have ever played Iowa in that 2013 game. It's the last time they played. So the series, I always love the series. Let's take a look at the series where nobody's ever played in it. Has no history with them. We know what Iowa, we know what Penn State. It's been always really close. And look, Kirk Ferentz has done a great job coaching the team, just like Hayden Fry did before.
Yeah,
before
I mean, he's a Pennsylvania guy, Upper St. Clair guy. He's grown up in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh. I think he modeled the program. Obviously Hayden Fry put the pieces in place, but I think he really modeled the program after Joe. It's like no nonsense. They play good defense, offensive line, very solid. They don't make mistakes, and Penn State's going to have their hands full.
Look, different players for both teams, different coach for Penn State, different scheme. But what's the one constant? You mentioned it. It's Ferentz. Yeah. He'd been involved in that. The guy knows how to coach. He doesn't trick it up too much. They come prepared to play football. And we haven't even talked about their success on the road yet, which I know we're going to get to.
Yeah, we'll get to, because they're still waiting for a lack of success on the road. All their losses have been at home, and people I don't think realize that. And they've always played well against Penn State when Penn State's been ranked. So, but again, that's other teams, other people, other matchups, other times. All right, we'll take a look at the Penn State offense as we continue after this. +500 yards in total offense, 62 points, no turnovers during the course of the game. I mean, all things that you can walk away and say, you know what? Job well done.
Those are expectations, right? I mean, that's what you draw up at the beginning. Hey, this is what we're going for. And then to actually go out there and produce those numbers, man,
that's not going to happen on Saturday. I guarantee you that.
Right. It's a whole different ballgame.
It's a totally different ballgame.
No question about that. Now, the drive of the game is early in the third quarter. Purdue actually got the ball first, and then Brandon Smith picked it off and set the Nittany Lion offense up for the Stocker Chevrolet drive of the game. Brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the Nittany Mall. And here comes Saquon Barkley. Jack Ham and I both felt that on this 4-play drive, they came out with an attitude.
Yep. I mean, the holes are huge. He's just taking it to him, and there's no way Purdue's stopping him at this point.
On first and goal, Saquon again, and right
And there's Barkley, the one. And then time to cap the 4-play, 24-yard drive. Let's throw it, and it's going to be Chris Godwin with his second touchdown of the game. And That put the Nittany Lions in front to stay.
Execution the key on every single one of those plays. Offensive line did their job. Chunk yardage for Saquon Barkley or inside the red zone when you talk about 9 yards, and then a perfect throw to Godwin for the touchdown.
And, of course, Barkley had a big game, a career-high 207 yards. He is the Big Ten and also the Family Clothesline Offensive Player of the Week. Well, when you're able to rip off 207 yards, get 70 yards on receptions. Oh, by the way, the 277 yards in this game on 21 touches.
Yeah. How many times have we talked about it, guys, at the beginning of the year? Just get this guy a little bit of room to maneuver, and he will do special things. Yeah. And he is living up to every bit of that hype.
He's just playing with so much confidence. I think the offensive line is really starting to come together, and you can see, I mean, you know, it is Purdue, but scoring 62 points is... It's still it's a big-time effort.
That 81-yard run is the 18th run of 80 yards or better in the history of Penn State football, and he ripped that one off. Obviously a career long for him. All right, so let's take a look at what Barkley has done to this point. Let's take a look at Barkley by the numbers to this stage. Now leads the conference in rushing, touchdowns, points scored. He's fourth. Yeah, he's got 888 yards, and you know, he is one of only 6 players in the history of Penn State to have multiple 200-yard rushing games in a season.
We talk about his shiftiness, right? We talk about his speed, but his strength is really underrated. And we talked a little bit about that in the offseason because you see him lifting weights and the totals that he puts up there, but that really comes into play. You get into the middle part of the season, the end part of the season. This guy's just really, really strong.
Yeah. You know, you talk to the offensive line, they say, look, we give him a crease, he goes. But then you talk to the wideouts like Chris Godwin, and he says, look, he opens it up for us too.
Yeah, I mean, you depending on what we do as an offense, you know, in that particular game, you know, obviously defenses are going to do like what they do. They're going to stick to what they know, you know. But as you start to have more success, you know, on a perimeter, you start to see things open up in a running game. And our offensive line, they do a great job of sticking with it, you know, and breaking up holes, you know, so for Saquon and the rest of the running backs to run through.
I mean, he's been the marked man all year. I mean, everybody, you know, and Iowa will do the same thing. I mean, Iowa may do the same thing every week, but let's face it, they know they've got to somehow slow down 26.
Yeah, I mean, if they can kind of keep him kind of caged up, you know, they're going to have a very good chance to win. I mean, clearly he's our best player. I keep saying that. He's probably the best player in the Big Ten, you know, other than a guy from Michigan, all-around player, and, you know, they're going to have their hands full of him.
You know, we talk about it energizing the offense, the rest of the guys opening things up. How about for the defense when you have a guy like that? I mean, it's got to energize the defense, too, when you know, just get off the field and let's watch Saquon do his thing.
Yep.
Right. And for Brendan Mann and the Nittany Lions up front, a different challenge, a bigger challenge this week against that Iowa defense.
They kind of got that, you know, real tough physical football team, kind of, you know, learn around them. They absolutely are. They deserve that, but they're big guys, they're strong, and, you know, it's going to take a good week of preparation and watching film to know exactly, you know, to kind of have a key on everything.
They're just really, I mean, Iowa's a very good defensive football team, especially when they get into the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, they're very well coached. They don't do really anything fancy. They kind of line up, they strap it up, and they come after you. And, you know, for Penn State in the past, you know, that's been a lot of problems for them on the offensive line. But, you know, Penn State's offensive line is playing pretty well.
It's also a different style that Penn State plays now. Penn State's not playing a pro-style offense like they did in recent years. And you look at Iowa on tape, you have to wonder, like, they played Wisconsin. That was just a tough, rock-em, sock-em, old-fashioned Big Ten football game. But what about facing the RPO?
Well, it opens things up. I think the difference this season and the moment that things clicked for Penn State, and we talked about this before, guys, is when Trace McSorley made himself so difficult to handle running the ball, and that's where Iowa's look. They got to stop something, or they got to key on something. So you key on Saquon Barkley, and then Trace McSorley hits you for first down yardage or the short passing game. Then they can hit you deep. There's a lot of things clicking on the offense that for defense, you got to pick something. You pick your poison. You're going to get beat somehow if Penn State is executing.
Yep.
And Iowa is as fundamentally sound a football team as you're going to see. I mean, they have their deal, and they execute their deal.
Yeah, I mean, they're what, second in the FBS as far as like turnover margin. You know, they're +7, we're +1. We're kind of getting there. Again, they don't make many mistakes. I mean, for me, it's an old-fashioned football team to watch. You know, they don't do anything crazy, but they're very well coached. And I mean, I really enjoy watching them just because They're so well coached.
The question becomes, guys, you can beat them with athletes. And
Yes.
that's how a lot of teams have been beat in the Big Ten. They talk about lack of speed. You know, the pass defense is suspect because they can't keep up with some of the athletes that another team can roll out there. Penn State has lifted the level of their talent and their athletic ability. And if they execute, they will beat a team like Iowa because they're just more gifted. They do a great job, and they do have good athletes, but I think Penn State is at the point now where they have a little bit more speed, a little bit more talent, where they can beat them athletically.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the Nittany Lion defense as we continue after this. That's such a good play by Brandon Smith. I mean, you know, as a linebacker, I mean, you have to appreciate depth of drop, read the whole thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's a good football player.
Yeah.
It's, you know, surprising that, you know, he hadn't played a lot of football for us just because, you know, we've got some talented guys in front of him. But you know what, surprise of the year for us defensively is Brandon Smith.
I like when you appreciate good linebacking play. Right? You get Trey talking about them linebackers. And, yeah.
Your people.
Puts a big smile on his face.
Puts a very big smile on my
Fantastic.
face.
This is your fraternity, man.
It's not running back you. It's not offensive line you. It's called linebacker you for a reason.
Speaking of which, our family clothesline player of the week, a linebacker, Jason Kabinda. And the game that he played, our family clothesline defensive player of the week, number 40. Jason Kabinda, out of Jersey, no less.
He's a Jersey guy. There you go.
Look at this.
100 Central, Tommy Bill's school. I mean, just brings it every single play. I mean, I think they really missed him when he was out. He's got a lot of energy. He's a leader, calls the defenses, and, you know, he could be a really good player going forward for us.
You could just see he brings, I mean, the communication skills just out there. He gets them into the right defense. And what does it mean, Trey, getting both Kabinda and Bell back at the same time?
Well, I mean, it's huge. I mean, the fact is that they were, you know, some of our best players on defense. You know, we lost a 3-down lineman to the NFL. The fact is that these guys have a lot of experience. They're good players, and more importantly, they're good leaders, Todd.
What it's meant is an upset win over Ohio State at home, and then forcing 4 turnovers. Haven't forced that many since 5 last year at Maryland. They cash in on the turnovers. When your scoring drives are 24 yards, 24 yards, 40 yards, and then you got a one-play 81-yard drive. I mean, you know, they're doing something. And, you know, on that interception to Brandon Smith, Brandon Bell he hurdled or he jumped over, he got flipped over by the blocker in front, but you know the quarterback sees that. You know, they sees that kind of pressure when guys are selling all out to make stuff happen.
You know, it's interesting. People have talked about facing the big offensive line. They've talked about what Pitt was able to do early in the season and, you know, to a point what Michigan did. But the funny thing is that, you know what those two games have in common? Penn State didn't have Bell or Kabinda in those games.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they had Bell for part of the Pitt game, Kabinda for neither game. They didn't have Bell or Kabinda. This is the first time they've actually had both guys in at the same time in a game like this.
And, Steve, that's what part of the college football playoff committee, I think, is about, is those kinds of things. I mean, they see those guys come back and what a difference it makes in a team. They didn't have them for some of those other games. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they're up there at 12. Yep.
I mean, that's what I'm anxious to see. I mean, I think they make a big difference in a game like this. We just haven't had a chance to see it yet because they haven't played in a game like this yet. Now we're about to see it. For James Franklin, trenches mean everything on a game like this.
But I think it really starts with them, like it always does at Iowa, up front. Coach Ferentz is probably one of the most respected offensive line coaches in the country, always has been. Their program has been built around that. The O-line, the D-line, their front 7 on defense and their O-line on offense. They always seem to have good running backs. They're going to play ball control offense, not make any mistakes, keep it a low-scoring game on defense, and also be able to find some playmakers on special teams and be well coached.
Always have good running backs. Wadley and Daniels have combined for better than 1,200 yards. They are 2 really good running backs behind that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're not really spectacular, but they're very good together. The fact is, you know, you put them, I mean, they're not Saquon Barkley, they're not even close to that, but the fact is together, they're very productive. They don't kind of get ahead of themselves, and they do what they need to do.
Kirk Ferentz loves to play great field position football, loves to work the clock. Oh, and by the way, giveaway takeaway is important to him. Let's take a look at Penn State's turnover margin so far to this point. What the Nittany Lions have done of late, they are +8 during this 4-game winning streak. It's made all the difference in the world. as to how they've been able to play the game. And you talked, I mean, Todd mentioned shortened fields. Well, shortened fields happen because of a fumble punt, an interception, things like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, you know, for Penn State's defense, what they've done really well recently is to make teams one-dimensional, and that's one of the things they would like to do against Iowa. Won't be easy because the running game, they stick to that so consistently, and they got a veteran quarterback. C.J. Beathard, you know, prides himself in good decision-making. Of course, that's what kind of quarterback Kirk Ferentz is going to want to have, is a guy that makes good decisions and does not make mistakes.
Well, why was Jake Rudock the starting quarterback last year at Michigan? Because in January of that year, Kirk Ferentz made the conscious decision to pick C.J. Beathard to be his quarterback, and it paid off in going to the Rose Bowl. I mean, he's a good player, just a really good player. We talked about giveaway, takeaway. Iowa, really good. Iowa, talk about taking advantage. They've scored 52 points off of takeaways. Now, Penn State has 48. Iowa's only given up 7 points when they've lost the ball. Iowa's only lost a fumble once this year. Yeah. I mean, this is Kirk Ferentz football.
It absolutely is. I mean, it's November. The weather's not going to be great. It'll be cold. They're going to keep the ball on the ground. You know, again, we've talked about this. They don't turn the ball over. I mean, for you know, someone who's a Big 12 fan, or someone wants to see a 65-59 game, it's not happening on Saturday, folks. Just don't even show up. It's going to be close. It'll be probably a one-possession game at the end of the game, and it's going to be fun to watch, certainly for me.
We've always sensed that you weren't a fan of
No,
Big 12
I think it's
football.
nonsense. It's like flag football.
Okay, we're back to the Thanksgiving show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, quickly, if we talk about teams not making mistakes, where can the game be won? Special teams. Right. Special teams.
And that's big. And Desmond King, by the way, is one of the better returners in the country. So keep an eye on that and how they try to neutralize somebody who's really good that can change field position. Coming up on the show, we still are going to take a long look at our good, bad, and the ugly. Teddy Greenstein is going to join us. And much, much more. We'll also take a long look at Iowa. Jay, what do you have in the film room for us?
Coming up in the film room, I think you get the sense from what Coach said earlier that it's going to be about Iowa. Well, we're going to talk about Iowa's offense, defense, and how basics have led to their success over the years under Kirk Ferentz.
Welcome into the film room, joined by Jay Paterno, sponsored by Letterman's Sports Grill and Gastropub. Now, as if Halloween wasn't scary enough, it's election week.
Oh, yeah.
So from the nation's heartland comes a basic, no-nonsense approach to football.
No question. And let's talk about Iowa. And, you know, this whole election thing started with the Iowa caucus, but it's going to be a conservative approach Saturday night. Let's talk about Iowa's defense and take a look at what they do. And as I mentioned, it is conservative. It's a very basic defense. You're going to get the three technique into the boundary. You're going to have a linebacker walked out in the one back, and you're going to have a safety that comes up and plays run support. They are going to try and play your run game with two safeties high, which makes it tougher to throw the ball. And you're going to force wideouts to block linebackers on the perimeter. So it's going to be a real challenge for Penn State to run the football against us with the blocking on the perimeter. Let's take a look at how that works. Again, here's going to be a play against Purdue. They run the football, and you see how aggressively the safety comes up and makes the tackle. Now, when you talk about their safeties come up on a run, you want to try and get some play action over the top if you can. But one thing you want to note is not only do the safeties come up in the run, they come up with some bad intent. Take a look at how aggressively this safety comes up here and takes on the Wisconsin quarterback who's run the ball. Now, this is a Wildcat set. But again, he comes up, and when he gets there, he doesn't just show up and knock the guy, tackle him around the ankles. He hits, and they're aggressive. One of the things as we look at the first graphic, one of the challenges for Penn State, and Chase McSorley, who's a 6-foot quarterback, not one of your taller guys, is going to be throwing the ball over the trees. You look at the average height of the guys up front is 6'5", 23 tackles for losses, 17.5 sacks on the season. Very, very effective up front, and they go 6'7", 6'8", 6'4", and I think 6'3". Now, inside, they're very, very strong. Take a look. Here's number 67 for Iowa. Just going to take a bull rush. Take a look at the video. He's nothing fancy. He's going to take Wisconsin's guard and literally knock him on his diaper and go tackle the quarterback. Now, to change things up, and one of the things over the years in Iowa's defense, with their down guys, they do a lot of movement up front. Here you're going to see that same defensive tackle come inside and break through a guard-center combo while his teammate comes around the edge. Take a look at this, and now he gets to the quarterback again. And you're looking at them against a very good offensive line in Wisconsin, a team that's had a lot of success this season and one of the better football teams in the country. Now, for Penn State, Third down continues to be a struggle, 2 of 9 last week against Purdue, a team that was giving up 50% on third downs. They've got to stay at a third and long, because when you get in the third and long, that's when Iowa does some things differently. They play some nickel. They take the linebackers out of the game against your one-back sets. And here they're going to take Desmond King and put him on the slot. What that's going to do, they place a man underneath. That's going to force you to throw the ball outside or force you to work the matchups with your running backs on your linebackers. Now here, if you look at Wisconsin, they do a nice job of getting this matchup. Penn State's got to try and do some things with Barkley in the pass game or with McSorley in the run game on third down. Take a look at how well Wisconsin does this against Iowa's linebacker. Sets him up with a little outside move, comes underneath and now moves the chains and keeps the ball in their hands. Now let's take a look at Iowa's offense. Now, one last note about King. You got to be careful with him in the special teams too as well. 32 yards a game or 32 yards a return on kickoff returns. Take a look at Iowa's offense. They run the ball very well, power and speed. Daniels and Wadley, Daniels being power, Wadley being the speed. Now, they keep it very, very basic up front. A zone blocking scheme. They're going to come off the ball aggressively on the front, cut blocks on the backside. So that's something Penn State's going to have to work on this week in practice. And now when you look at this, you see they come off the edge. Take a look at the video, and you'll see Daniels running off the edge. The offensive line comes off. They overblock the front side. They get outside. They block your support. Nothing fancy. Nothing that you don't see 100 times, but they do it over and over and over again. Now, to show the speed, they run a little counterplay. They're going to run the same blocking zone scheme front side to get the linebackers running. They're going to bring the fullback backside, and now Wadley's going to come all the way around the backside. You take a look at this on the video. He takes a step front side and comes all the way around. You need real speed. And then you look at this move right there. You need real speed to make that happen by starting front side and coming backside the way they're blocking it. They've done a nice job getting Wadley the ball in some other situations. Penn State has the run-pass option. Here's a pass screen option that they're going to run with Wadley. They run routes on the front side. If he wants to throw, he can do it. Otherwise, he throws back here in the screen with a kick out, a lead block, and what we call the rat killer. Take a look at the video on this. Again, nice, easy throw, a throw I can still make, and they get the ball out to Wadley, and there's a 20-yard gain, and that moves the chains for him, keeps him involved. Now, one of the things they'll do is another guy to look for is McCarron. He's a shifty receiver. Here on this route, you're going to see him come underneath, and you're going to see how strong Beathard is. Let's take a shot. Look at the video here. Beathard comes back to pass. He's got a real small window. The ball gets to McCarron. McCarron's not afraid to go over the middle. So you can see not a lot of special things, not a lot of new things, but it's going to be about execution.
Absolutely. No big frills, no flair, sound fundamentals, and attention to detail will be key.
No question. You know, the thing about this game, and it's unchanged over the course of football. Vince Lombardi once said, football is blocking and tackling. Everything else is mythology. So if you're a Penn State fan, you're watching this game, watch for the blocking and tackling in this game and the fundamentals.
Mythology, that's Greek to me. More Blue-White Tailgate coming up. Stay with us.
They huddle. They use a fullback, right? They have running backs. They play a 4-3 defense. They play the way all of us were brought up watching teams play, right? I mean, that's, you know.
It's not fancy again. If you want to watch a 62-59 game, just don't show up on Saturday night at Beaver Stadium. I mean, they're going to come like hard.
You can only tell it's Iowa, like what team, what decade from the quality of the video. Like if you made the video grainy from 2014, you go, oh, that's the 88 team.
Right.
Yeah. You know, that's 95 team. You know, you can only tell because the video quality's gotten better through the years.
And by the way, the last word I wanted to throw in there, successful. All right? You could talk about all this successful. Well, Hayden Fry did a great job, and then they handed the baton to Kirk Ferentz, and you know what? Kirk Ferentz has done the job. What a career.
Handed to him oh so long ago, Steve, now, right? 18 years, longest tenured coach in college football, head coach. That's pretty incredible.
You know, and it seems like every 3 or 4 years somebody gets disgruntled and says, you know what, maybe the game's passed him by. Then he comes up with a Rose Bowl, an Orange Bowl, something, and says, I think I know what I'm doing here. And he does. He's just a pro as a coach.
He's very solid. I mean, you're not going to get anything fancy from the guy. Like I said, he's a Pittsburgh guy. He recruits Iowa guys. They got 53 guys on their roster from Iowa. They've got 5 sets of brothers on the team, right? They've got 9 former players' sons on the team. It's a tradition that's really almost unmatched in college football right now.
And not many people have the kind of record that Kirk Ferentz has against Penn State. I mean, he's 8-4 really against the Nittany Lions.
Yep. Really good. Let's take a look at the Iowa offense now and get Iowa by the numbers this season. You can see for the most part good, but it's that rushing part that's the key because Daniels and Wadley are a really good combination. What's hurt the passing offense, though, is that obviously is losing Vandenberg on the outside. That really has been the setback for them offensively.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the running back by committee with the 2 running backs, but not having a threat on the outside has really kind of limited them. Again, they're not fancy, but they're going to have to start to throw the ball, I think, against Penn State on Saturday.
Yeah. All right, let's. James Franklin says, look, you look at Iowa, you know what they're going to do, and up front, they're always going to be really good.
And I know you guys probably get sick of me saying this, but it's an upfront game. It's an upfront conference. That's, I think, college football, and they do a good job with that. That's how they're built. And we've taken great strides in that area, but that's going to be the challenge on Saturday. Our D line being able to challenge and hold up against their O-line.
There are a lot of reasons why they got to the Rose Bowl last year. C.J. Beathard's one of them. He played really well.
Absolutely. And you talk about the offensive line, a veteran quarterback. Oh, those are 2 things that travel well, don't they? I mean, you can hit the road with that and be successful. 9-game road winning streak. I mean, these guys know how to get it done away from home, and that makes them very dangerous when they come visiting, even if it's a nighttime atmosphere in Beaver Stadium. These guys can travel and play well on the road.
Yeah. George Kittle, really good at tight end. Really like him a lot. A lot of yards after the catch, good blocker. Riley McCarron on the outside has been their top receiver. Now, what about the Iowa defense? Let's take a look at the Iowa defense by the numbers. Okay, for the most part, the defensive numbers are okay, but it's when you get into the red zone against them that, that's where they slow teams down, and they're very opportunistic.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age in college football, I mean, the thing that I look for is like the scoring defense, and for them only giving up 20 points a game, it's ranked 6th in the conference. I mean, you seem that's kind of like mediocre, but in today's day and age, with teams are scoring 30, 40 points a game, giving up 20. You're going to be in every game, giving up only 20 points a game, Todd.
It's a bend but don't break philosophy for the Hawkeyes. And you mentioned the red zone. Defensively, they're really good. Offensively, same thing. 25 scores and 27 trips into the red zone. 19 times they reached the end zone. The numbers look pedestrian. The team, the concepts look mediocre, you said. I mean, some of the adjectives we're using, but yet the win column always seems to have more numbers in it or a higher number in it than the loss column for Iowa.
They don't care that you know what they're going to do because they know they can execute it. That's Iowa football. All right, now, Brendan Mann says up front, look, you got to go at them head to head, and you have to start in practice.
It's more of a mentality thing, obviously, and it gets you, walking in, you're thinking about it a little bit, but, when the whistle blows, and that's when it's time to get after it. And the offensive line of Penn State's going to, do what we do and continue to improve it week to week, and hopefully the outcomes, in our favor.
Todd, 3 of the top 4 tacklers are linebackers. I thought I'd point that out.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Again, okay, there it is. There it is.
I can't. That's exactly right. I can't. And one of them's named Bauer. I mean, come on, for God's sakes. I mean, he's the 6th leading tackler on the team. He's not number 1, and it's B-O-W, not B-A, but the fact is the linebackers, I think, are the strength of their defense.
Is a neck roll standard issue for these guys, too? Jay Paterno pointed out that Cabinda's wearing an old-style Trey Bauer neck roll.
There you go.
I was old school. They should have it standard issue.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, no, they went back into the equipment room. They found yours. They found yours. It's awfully effective. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Bo Bauer, by the way. Yeah, number 41. Good player. Josie Jewell in the middle, by the way, 43. Really good player as well. Coming up, we're going to take a long look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. Teddy Greenstein is going to join Mandy Niad to talk about the state of the Big Ten and also the first college football playoff rankings. That's coming up in just a few moments. And we'll have our picks for the week. And, I mean, some of the records are as ugly as the pictures they're going to put up. Coming up, Mandy talks to Teddy after this. He's truly one of the outstanding writers that covers the Big Ten on a daily basis. You also see him on BTN. That's Teddy Greenstein, and he has a chance now to talk with our Mandy Niad. Mandy?
Thanks so much, Steve. Teddy Greenstein has been with the Chicago Tribune since 1996, and he joins us now on the Blue White Tailgate. Teddy, welcome.
Mandy, so good to be doing this.
Thank you, thank you. Now, the big news is that 6 games will be played under the Friday night lights for the Big Ten. Talk about how big a deal that is.
Yeah, I'll tell you, earlier this week, I found out that the Big Ten will be bucking tradition. And typically the league has only ventured into Friday night games on Labor Day weekend because they say they don't really want to interfere with classes. And on these large campuses, a Friday night game really, is challenging because people there at work and you've got issues of traffic and just getting around. So they've been reluctant, but starting in 2017, there will be 6 Big Ten games on Friday night, 3 conference, 3 non-conference, and they definitely feel like getting exposure for more schools is good, and certainly they'll get some more cash in their next TV deals as a result as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. The college football playoff rankings also came out earlier this week, and we saw 5 Big Ten teams ranked in the top 12. What does that mean for the Big Ten Conference? Yeah,
it's remarkable, Mandy, when you think about the fact that the Big 12's top entrant is Oklahoma at 14. You've got 5 Big Ten teams higher than the best of the Big 12, which is really remarkable. And obviously Penn State is there, and Nebraska, and Ohio State, and Michigan. And, there are a lot of schools that are in the mix right now. I mean, it is early November, so a lot of weird things can happen, and certain things will shake out Saturday. There's basically a playoff elimination game that's going to take place between Nebraska and Ohio State. But this is a great start. And, Penn State at 12 is in a pretty good spot when you consider that Ohio State was 16th 2 years ago and was able to work its way up into the playoff.
Okay, but in your opinion, do you see 2 of those Big Ten teams making it all the way to the college football playoffs?
It would take some extraordinary events because it is hard for a team with 1 loss that has not won its conference to get there. But, the answer to all these playoff questions in early November is it depends. Let's hope for the Big Ten's sake that Washington loses and the Pac-12 has nobody. Let's see about Clemson and Louisville. So if schools from those other leagues start losing, then maybe you have a situation where, let's say, Ohio State or Penn State beats edges out Michigan in terms of the Big Ten East crown and wins the Big Ten. Well, maybe you have, the loser there. Maybe you have a 1-loss Michigan team getting in. And from the other side, Wisconsin has 2 losses. So it's possible that the Badgers find their way. And just to be able to talk about that at this point in the season is exciting because other leagues have almost no hope.
Were you surprised to see Penn State come in at number 12?
Yeah, I'd say delightfully surprised. I'm a guy who always favors teams that have played tough schedules. And the AP voters were not so high on the Nittany Lions, had them 20th. So to see that the committee has Penn State 12th, that means that they have a lot of respect for a team that, had to go on the road and play at Pittsburgh and had to deal with, the big house in Michigan. Clearly that committee is valuing the wins over Minnesota and Maryland, and of course the whiteout victory over Ohio State. So considering where Penn State was a few weeks ago before you set foot on campus, things were looking pretty dismal. And now ever since that October 1st victory over Minnesota, Penn State's been, the arrow's been pointing way up.
Right. As a national journalist, how has Penn State's perception changed since that first half against Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, as of a month ago, the storyline was still, James Franklin can't win the big one. This program is not back. Our sanctions still hurting. And now all of a sudden, wow, these guys are 12th. They rallied down 14 in the fourth quarter to beat Ohio State. I mean, these are some serious accomplishments going on. And then, taking out Purdue with an enormous second half last week is nice as well. So huge game against Iowa because, beyond that, at Indiana, at Rutgers, Michigan State, hard to envision any of those teams beating Penn State.
Speaking of Iowa, in this era of teams having flavor of the month offenses, what does it say about Coach Ferentz and the Iowa program for sticking with that same offense.
Yeah, Mandy, it's true. I mean, when you look at Iowa, it's kind of stuck in the dark ages, and their fans are groaning a lot about that. But sometimes it works. I mean, let's not forget just last year. I mean, Iowa was 12-0. Had a great regular season, almost beat Michigan State in the Big Ten title game. So the defensive coordinators who go up against Iowa know what's coming. They know it's going to be a power attack, heavy emphasis on the rushing game. They're certainly going to sprinkle in some passes, but that's not going to be the first priority. But even though you know what's coming, it's hard to defend. So Penn State, that's certainly going to be a game where the front seven has to show up big time.
Teddy, thank you so much for joining us, and Steve, back to you.
Great job as always, Mandy. Appreciate that, and our thanks to Teddy Greenstein from the Chicago Tribune. Coming up, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which also could describe our picks, which are also coming up, along with the keys of the game as Penn State gets ready to take on Iowa prime time in Beaver Stadium, as we continue with more after this. Well, it's Whiteout 2 coming up in prime time Saturday night at Beaver Stadium. We get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Number 35 is the angelic one this week. You get the good.
I'm always good, just for the record. I think the good this week, it's a second whiteout. You know what? Who said there could only be one whiteout? I mean, the fact is Penn State really took it to Ohio State, beat the number 2 ranked team in the country. Penn State's got a lot of momentum. Make another whiteout. Who cares, Todd?
Bad would be the fines to ACC coaches. I mean, they certainly complain a lot, the officiating a lot in that conference. Ugly.
Trey, if some is good, more is better. I've heard that said before by someone else. So that's what you're saying there. Okay. The ugly, the Big 12, the CFP rankings are out, and no one above 13. 14th is where you find the first Big 12 team, Oklahoma. You better start thinking about all the other bowl games. Forget about the semifinals.
You didn't seem disappointed by that.
No, I'm not disappointed because I don't like the Big 12.
Okay.
Bunch of clowns.
And the Thanksgiving show coming up, what he doesn't like. All right, time now to take a look at our picks. Here are the standings so far. And is that a neck roll?
It is a neck roll. Come on, old school.
Old school. Meanwhile, Todd's out at the golf course, Jay in his uniform.
And that's your high school graduation picture, isn't it, Steve?
I mean, that's from 1975. Okay, let's get to the picks. All right, you get USC and Oregon.
Yeah, and did you see the standings? So you might just skip right past what I had to say. This used to be a really good game, maybe 5 years ago. And the Pac-12, they usually play 2 games, the first half and the second half. They both last as long as a game. I'm going to say USC has more points by the end.
All right, Miami at Pitt. Jay, you get that one.
Well, Steve, I've got Pitt at Miami. At one time, this would be an exciting game, but I'm going to go with Pitt in this one. I think they're playing really well right now, and they're going to beat the Canes.
Well, I get LSU, Alabama. Now, look, it's really hard to go against Alabama, but maybe this time it's in Baton Rouge. Maybe. All right, Trey, you get another game you really like. Nebraska, Ohio State.
Okay, so LSU is not going to beat Alabama, just in case you guys are scoring at home. I got Nebraska at Ohio State. You know I don't like Ohio State. The Horseshoe, what kind of stadium is that? The fact is they're going to beat Nebraska. Nebraska came off a tough loss at Wisconsin. There's no way that Ohio State loses this game.
All right, so now we get to our keys of the game, and the angelic one goes first.
My keys to the game are, can Penn State and Saquon Barkley get off to a fast start? And again, we talked about this earlier. You got to really watch Desmond King on the return game. He's one of the most electrifying players in the country.
All right, I go giveaway, takeaway, and this one will be important. Todd?
I think Trace McSorley's accuracy. Look, he's only about 55%. If he's over 60 to 65% in this game, that means they're moving the chains. They're staying on the field. He needs to be a little bit more accurate in this game. I think they win it.
All right, so the Nittany Lions go for their 5th consecutive win when they take on Iowa in Beaver Stadium coming up Saturday night at 7:30. For Todd, Trey, who likes a lot of things, believe me, I'm Steve Jones. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate Show.